To the latest breaking news that negotiations over border wall funding have broken down over the number of ICE detention beds. I want to bring in Ohio Democratic Congressman Tim Ryan. He sits on the House Appropriations Committee. And Congressman, it's always a pleasure to have you on the program. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
You heard what Senator Lindsey Graham said, that your colleagues want to force the president to limit and cut the number of beds in ICE detention centers for violent offenders as a way to get any more money for the border wall. Your reaction?
Well, you know, this is the first I've heard of that. I mean, I love Lindsey Graham, but he's breaking news this morning and you know, speaking about something I've not heard about. And I, for one, and I think a lot of other people aren't for releasing violent offenders in any regard. And so I got to look more into that. But that doesn't sound like something that I would be supportive of, or many Democrats would be supportive of.
I mean, you're on the Appropriations Committee. Talk to us about what seems practical to you. We've got a picture here of the wall in Nancy Pelosi's state, which we've spoken about a number of times on this program. The wall that separates Tijuana from San Diego, where 1.5 million people are on the Tijuana side and 1.5 million people are on the San Diego side, and it's a very dense area. And since that wall has gone up, the number of apprehensions at that border has declined. Given what we know about crime at the border, given what we know about the national security worries of the American people, what is practical in terms of the amount of money allocated to a border wall?
Well, first and foremost, the president already had $1.6 billion to handle border security, the border wall issue, and barriers and all the rest. He's only spent about $300 million of it. So I think it's important for people to know there's $1 billion+ out there that he's already not spent. I think it's also important for us to remember, Maria, like the president every day gets a presidential daily briefing. There have been problems in Guatemala, Honduras, Central American countries where a lot of these people are coming from. I think a president that was awake and paying attention and recognizing that there were, and reading the presidential daily briefing, would have known these problems were coming. And I think a little bit of investment of just probably millions of dollars to help secure those countries, not fix all the ills in those countries, but secure them enough so that gangs aren't running the countries. That's what's happening down there. Gangs are running the countries. They're stealing kids. They're putting people in the sex trade, and people are getting the hell out of there like most parents would make that same decision. So my point is, I think if he would have played a little offense here, we wouldn't have these problems with the caravans. Now, having said that, I think it's important for us to recognize that 90% of the drugs coming through the country come in through the legal ports of entry. That's 90%. We have a heroin epidemic in Ohio. We've got to address this issue. I just want to see resources put where the problem is. And 50 to 75% of the people who have overstayed their visas come in, or that are here undocumented, have overstayed their visas. So they come here legally and then they overstay. So, okay, we need a barrier here or there. We're not going to put a wall in the middle of the Rio Grande River.
Right.
There are many ranch owners and there are many farmers on southern border states that aren't for the wall because they don't want the government coming in and eminent domaining their property. So we've got to take all this into account, and I hope we can experience some of this nuance as they're negotiating this now.
Well, as usual, you're bringing up very practical ideas and issues, but, you know, you are, in my opinion, an outlier of your party. I mean, there were real, you know, issues and divisions within the Democratic Party even before Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez showed up. And now that she has shown up, it's gotten an even deeper and deeper divide. I think what I hear you saying is, yes, there are real issues, whether it's the ports or the border, in terms of people wanting to come into this country, coming into this country illegally, and something needs to be done about it. But, you know, you're not against putting up walls where they are necessary.
Well, I think, you know, it's 2019 now. We have a lot of technology. That needs to be the vast majority. Look, if there are experts saying in specific areas you need a barrier there, Look, I'm okay with that. To me, it's about securing the border in the most appropriate and efficient way. I don't think the border wall is immoral. I just think it doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think we have technologies that are much better equipped to handle what's happening here. And as I said, 90% of the drugs are coming in through the legal port of entry. So I think the most responsible taxpayer would say, spend my money there. You know, make sure we have enough dogs and manpower and technology where all the drugs are coming through. We're experiencing this every day in Ohio with the opiate epidemic, and too many people are dying. So I'm deeply concerned about it. I just want to be smart on how we spend it. And if people are overstaying their visas, how do we use data analytics? How do we use metrics to be able to find out who those people are?
Let me broaden out, Congressman, to some of the other issues that are obvious in your party, and that really includes some of these very radical ideas. Medicare for all, which basically eliminates the private insurance industry in America as we know it, or 70% tax rates on the highest earners, or, of course, your colleague Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's new Green Deal, where she said she wants to eliminate fossil fuels within the next 10 years, which every scientist I've spoken with will tell you that is absolutely impossible. Dallas Federal Reserve President yesterday, Robert Kaplan, with me, saying we're going to be with fossil fuels for at least the next 25 years. Do you endorse these plans?
These plans, I think, across the board really are value statements. These are value documents. They are saying, look, we have a healthcare crisis in the United States where we spend 2.5 times as much money on healthcare as every other industrialized country, and we get the worst outcomes. We know that if we continue down the path we're going down now with regard to energy and farming and all the rest, that we're going to have a 7-degree increase Celsius in our temperature, global temperature, in the next 70 years. That's a big problem. And you know who's most concerned about that is the United States military, because as sea waters rise, you have migration, and migration causes conflict. And guess who's got to deal with conflict around the world? It's the United States of America that ultimately has to deal with a lot of these issues. And when you talk about tax rates and progressivity and making sure, we just had a report come out this week, Maria.
Yeah.
The top 400 people in the United States make as much and have as much wealth as the bottom 150 million. Now, you can't move forward with an economy like that. Are you endorsing
70% tax rates right now?
Well, I'm not going to negotiate a tax bill right now because there's so many variables here. There's VAT taxes, there's progressive taxes, there's income taxes. I think it needs to be done through a committee process. But what I will say is, if we don't address the fact that 400 people have as much wealth as the bottom 150 million, we need a tax code that addresses that. And we have the highest inequality since the Roaring 20s. That's a recipe for disaster. And it's not that we hate...
Should there be help in terms of redistribution? Take from that top 400 and give it to the people who say they are unwilling to work. That was in Ocasio-Cortez's plan. Give money to the people who say they are unwilling to work.
I believe that every able-bodied American needs to go to work. They need to work hard just like everybody else. But work needs to pay, too. And the problem is, for most workers the last 30 years, they haven't seen a raise. And I think what she's trying to do is highlight these issues. And workers want cut in on the deal, Maria.
But
that's all they want. They don't want... They're not cut in, though. They're not cut in.
I would think that people also want the honesty of what these kinds of plans cost and if there is actually making sense to them. For example, the Medicare for All is going to cost more than $30 trillion. Now, we're talking about $36 trillion over 10 years when you're talking about $5.7 billion for a border wall. What percentage of that is the overall? What percentage of the overall budget is $5.7 billion for a border wall? And you've got these pie-in-the-sky ideas like $36 trillion for Medicare for all over a 10-year period. How do you justify that?
Well, I mean, that's the cost, but it's also dramatically reducing, probably by 80%, your private health care costs. So it's not just you continue to pay private insurance and then you also pay the additional money for the Medicare for All system. And I think we've got to talk about how best to implement it. But the number one issue, and this is why I say these are conversations we need to have as a country, and we're not having them. We spend 2.5 times as much as every other industrialized country. We get the worst results, and people can't afford to pay for health care. They can't keep up. So what are we doing about it? The president's plan, both of them, we're throwing 20 million people off of health care. Look, none of this is going to be perfect, but here's the main point. We've got to come together. A divided country is a weak country, and that's why we're having all of these problems. We're so divided. Yeah. Look, the government is a limited partner in some of this stuff, but we also need the free enterprise system to help us with this. We're not going to convert to a green economy without the private enterprise or without American business. So we all need to sit down. We're not going to fix health care with just the government or just the private sector. We have got to come together. Yes. We are weak now because we are divided, and I hope we can start coming together, because when we're so divided and we're pitting white workers against black workers and black workers against brown workers, guess what? The top 400 wealthiest people in the country get as much wealth as the bottom 60%.
Congressman, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Good to see you, sir.
Thanks, Maria.
Congressman Tim Ryan. Back in a minute.